Let's get started with our first news. Daniel Cormier reacts to Jon Jones live stream footage. Today, let's dive into Daniel Cormier's reaction to Jon Jones's live stream footage from over the weekend. As we reported earlier, Jon Jones went live, visibly on something, slurring his words, and it sparked a lot of conversations. Before we continue, don't forget to leave a like on the video to support the channel. Apparently, Jon Jones was on vacation with his family and decided to go live in the middle of the night, around 2 to 3 a.m. Jon said this on his trip: "Get off this one, another that you just want." Recently, Daniel Cormier reacted to the footage, and rather than bashing Jon Jones, which would have been an easy thing to do, he decided to defend Jones while on a podcast with Ben Askren for his YouTube channel. Here's what DC had to say about the live stream footage. "Can I be honest with you? I don't like being supportive. So Jon Jones the other day was like freaking out, walking down the street, and he was saying some crazy stuff about his kid. Ben, you know what's crazy? Ben, you said he was on vacation? I didn't know he was on vacation. If he was on vacation, haven't we all been there? Maybe not that extreme, but it's like our kids drive us crazy. And you know what the worst part is? When you go back to that hotel room, you're the bad guy. Everybody's found a way to make you the bad guy because you're upset about them being bad. I don't want to defend him, but I mean, come on, man. He's got, like, not say you're going to, but like, oh my god, my children are being so bad. Have we not all been there? Do you guys agree with Daniel Cormier here? Let us know what you're thinking down in the comment section below. Now let's move on to the second story. Khamzat Chimaev runs into Merab, goes in detail about it. On Vad Gila's YouTube channel, he shared footage of himself and Merab Dvalishvili reacting live to Khamzat Chimaev's fight against Kamaru Usman. It was clear that Merab was heavily rooting for Usman, actively cheering him on, urging him to swing and go for the win. When Kamaru finally started throwing, Merab reacted with frustration, saying he should have done it earlier. Throughout the fight, both Merab and Vad were fully behind Usman, but what really stood out was not just that Merab was supporting Usman, but he was openly rooting against Khamzat. Here's how he sounded. "Let's go, Khamzat. Come on, press him, for the sake. Come on, Usman, you must fight like a warrior. Let's go." Those were the words Merab Dvalishvili shouted during Khamzat Chimaev's fight with Kamaru Usman. Merab was visibly supporting Usman throughout the fight, urging him to engage more aggressively. As the fight progressed, it became clear that Merab was not only backing Usman, but actively rooting against Khamzat. His vocal support for Usman was intense, criticizing Khamzat's strategy and hoping Usman would pick up the pace. The frustration in his voice was undeniable as he urged his fighter to swing for the fences and press the action. However, Khamzat didn't take kindly to the way Merab was cheering against him. In an appearance on Adam Zub's YouTube channel, Khamzat was asked about Merab's comments, and that's when he snapped. While Khamzat didn't directly call Merab out by name, his message was clear. He explained that he hears this kind of talk all the time, but what frustrates him is that he never sees the same energy when these people are face to face with him. He pointed out that he and Merab had met in person before, and yet Merab never said a word of criticism then. Khamzat shared, "Look, man, even as a professional, there comes a point when you just stop caring and decide to confront people who talk bad about you or don't want to see you succeed. It used to bother me, but now I don't care. I've gotten used to it. A lot of these fighters don't want to see me win. They act one way in front of a camera, but when I see them in person, they're silent. The energy just isn't the same." This back and forth only adds more fuel to the growing tension between Georgian fighters and the Dagestani camp. The rivalry between these two camps has been brewing for some time now. Whether it's Ilya Topuria calling out Islam Makhachev or Merab and Umar Nurmagomedov having heated exchanges, even escalating into physical altercations, it's clear that this rivalry is not slowing down. The competition between these fighters is fierce, but it's the underlying tension between them that makes it even more intriguing. Whether it's Ilya versus Islam or Merab versus Khamzat, these clashes aren't just about skill in the octagon. There's an emotional, personal edge to these matchups that seems to grow with every interaction. This rivalry will definitely be something to watch unfold in the coming months. Now, let's move on to another big headline. Francis Ngannou blames Dana White for being a massive obstacle that blocked the Jon Jones fight. Francis recently shared his thoughts on the chances of a long-awaited showdown with Jon Jones, revealing that he sees UFC President Dana White as the main roadblock in an interview with Sportsbook Review. Ngannou questioned whether White even wants him to succeed outside the UFC, hinting at lingering tension after his departure from the promotion. Despite his desire for the fight, Francis admitted he doesn't believe it will happen, citing Dana as the key obstacle. He explained that he's been trying to secure a fight with Jones since 2020, right after his win against Jairzinho Rozenstruik at UFC 249. According to Francis, the UFC dangled the possibility of the Jones fight as a lure to keep him from leaving, describing it as a bait and switch tactic. Ngannou made it clear that his career doesn't hinge on fighting Jon Jones, as he's focused on his own path and is content with his accomplishments regardless of whether the super fight ever materializes. He said, "If you can get past Dana White, it could happen, but that's a massive obstacle. But personally, I don't care. I'm doing well. I'm doing my stuff at my pace. I don't care. That won't change my sleep. For me, I have tried to fight Jon Jones for 4 years, and then they were holding it out like a trap until the moment I was about to leave. Then they said, okay, here's the Jon Jones fight. But it was BAIT. I felt they were very tricky." The Predator believes White struggles to accept how things played out and even questions whether the UFC boss wants to see him fail outside the promotion. Regardless, Ngannou remains focused on his own path, making it clear that the lack of a Jones fight won't deter him. Let's move on to another big story. Chael Sonnen believes Alex Pereira will move up to heavyweight. Chael thinks that Alex Pereira won't be staying in the light heavyweight division for long. Currently, Pereira is deep in training camp, preparing to defend his light heavyweight title against Magomed Ankalaev next month. However, Chael believes that regardless of how that fight goes, Pereira will ultimately move up to the heavyweight division soon after. Chael shared his thoughts on his YouTube channel, giving a bold prediction. If Pereira wins, he's going to be looking for something else to do, and if he loses, he's gone. I feel like many of you have forgotten how Pereira got to 205 pounds in the first place. He didn't get there by cleaning out the 185-pound division. No, he moved up to 205 because he lost at 185. That's what opened the door for him. No belt, no vacating, he just moved up. So no matter what happens with Ankalaev, things are going to be very different for Pereira. I predict he's going to move up to heavyweight, and the ticking time bomb of Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall is going to keep carrying on, dragging this whole thing out. But that time bomb will reach midnight as soon as Pereira is done with his business against Ankalaev, win or lose. Moving on to another update, Eric Nixick recently admitted he made a mistake by publicly criticizing Sean Strickland. After Strickland's loss to Jared Cannonier, Nixick called the performance uninspiring and suggested Strickland should reassess his commitment to MMA. He also expressed a desire to work with fighters who are focused on becoming world champions, rather than those primarily interested in the money. Strickland, in turn, responded by saying Nixick would no longer be part of his corner in future fights. Strickland went on to call Nixick an influencer for sharing his thoughts publicly on a podcast instead of addressing the issue privately, saying, "I like Eric, he's a friend of mine, and he's going to continue to be a friend of mine. Will he probably be my corner? Probably not. The only reason I'm making this video is because Eric had to go do podcasts and become an influencer, so now I gotta explain myself." Matt Brown also weighed in on the situation, stating that coaches shouldn't publicly criticize their fighters. In response, Eric Nixick wrote, "I agree, Matt. Looking back at it, I made a mistake. My true intentions were to try and motivate him publicly, but that was a miscalculation on my part. Finally, Alex Pereira is open to friendship with Jamahal Hill. It wasn't that long ago that Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill nearly came to blows at the UFC Performance Institute, PI. Hill walked up to Pereira, talking some trash, and Pereira, ever the competitor, offered him the chance to settle things right there on the spot. The confrontation added fuel to the already tense relationship between the two, with each throwing verbal jabs at the other over the years. However, despite their history of back and forth, Pereira recently made it clear that he's open to moving past their beef and potentially building a friendship sometime down the road. In an appearance on Straight Talk with Mark Boris, Pereira said that while there's no chance of them being friendly at the moment, he would have no problem squashing their issues if they ever fight. Pereira said, "Right now, no, because of a potential fight in the future. We fight in the same weight class, but if it happens, just like Israel Adesanya, I'm not fighting Hill anymore. I have no problem with that. We can be friends, train together, no problem for me." This is a significant shift from the animosity that has marked their interactions, especially considering how heated their exchanges have been in the past. Hill, of course, might feel differently about their relationship, since their UFC 300 fight, which ended with some controversy over the sequence that led to Pereira's knockout, Hill has voiced his frustration. He described the finish as weird and confusing, suggesting that the way Pereira set up his knockout following a low blow was questionable and left a bad taste in his mouth. Despite their differences, Pereira's willingness to make peace shows his maturity and desire to move on from past conflicts, much like he did with Israel Adesanya. Whether or not Hill shares the same sentiment remains to be seen, but it's clear that the possibility of future friendship is now on the table. That's it for today's roundup of MMA news. We've got some exciting matchups coming up and plenty of drama in the UFC. Let us know what you think in the comments. Keep supporting the channel and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates.